been no secret that a lot more people have been playing the Horde than they have been playing the Alliance recently, and not so recently. It is hard to give legit stats, as this always varies from region to region and server to server, but on some occasions there are 90% Horde players and Alliances all but non-existing, causing grouping to become nearly impossible even on super high activity days like patch days. It isn't the lore, this really is the true reason they added cross-faction grouping in order to balance this out, because it definitely started becoming a serious issue. However, the actual question is, why is this the case? Is it the racials? Is the Alliance just too boring? Are the races just too generic and bland? And why are so many people choosing to play the Horde over the Alliance? Guys, I have something really cool to show you, and that is a really unique mobile game, the sponsor of this video, Heroes of the Dark. Two things make this game really stand out in my opinion, and that is the amazing graphics, as it has a really unique vampire-esque art style, but also the fact that this is a mix between strategy and an RPG. The entire game is set on your
The State of the Union is Alliance are dirty trolls, Horde are magnificent beings.
It's really addictive. Then from this base you can do a whole bunch of PvP and PvE. You have a lot of heroes you can unlock and level up, from vampires, werewolves to humans, and then you can send them on missions, you can attack other players, you can do the campaign, you can join a guild, and really all with the focus on constantly improving your base and
are any of these people in here?
Pool.
You guys let me know if you're in here.
My favorite is Beersheba von Mermot, and just how he sits on the throne like a true vampire lord. Best of all,
what the hell was that, a Worgen too?
And just how he sits on the throne like a true
Look at that. Oh yeah, that's a Worgen too, right there. What in the wow ripoff is this?
Lord. Best of all, the game is available for Android, iOS, and your PC. Took me a few days to really deck out my mansion, and you can do the same, as it has never been a better time to start. So click the link in the description, download the game, and join me right now. And if you click my link, you will get a $15 vampire account as Magla to immediately start your journey in 10 minutes.
War. I see you. I see you, War.
What are the most recently added features that change World of Warcraft to the core, the game forever?
Stone Cold copy,
addition of cross-faction grouping. Well, lore-wise,
starting to sound like Sam is casting a spell on Entgrove. Entgrove, become a healer. Become DPS.
This makes complete sense. It really wasn't done for the lore, but in order to fix this,
he's a Swiss Army knife. I just use him for whatever I need.
Made the game quite unplayable. On some servers and regions, it was literally impossible for Alliance players to find groups, and seeing that some people are really loyal to factions and wouldn't even play the Horde at all, they would just make people lose interest in the game. And
yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I fell into this category for a long time, where like I was very loyal to the Alliance. I wanted to play Alliance. I prefer the Alliance aesthetic and the Alliance side of the game, but it was just getting so bad. Like, it was becoming really hard to play the game, and it was getting to a point where like I wasn't enjoying playing the game anymore. And all my buddies were playing Horde, so it was like, what are you gonna do, man? Are you gonna like seriously just not want to play the game anymore? You're just gonna switch over factions, and that's what I did. I just finally made the switch over to the Horde. And I didn't even, and like, I was so loyal to the Alliance that I wouldn't switch my tunes over. Like, I refused to bring my mage, who was my main at the time. He was a human mage, and I was like, I'm not bringing him over. This was BFA. I'm like, I'm just going to make a new Horde tune and level him up. So I made a Death Knight, the Death Knight I'm playing right now, and I leveled him all the way up to cap level on the Horde. And currently, my Alliance tunes are still there. They still exist on the Alliance, but I only really play this guy. And I finally broke the faction divide wall and joined over. Sam cast tree mode on Entgrove. It's super effective. Wow, it's full on the healer queue. Yeah. I'm seeing if any of these healers are in here, though.
The player base, which is not a good thing for Blizzard, and funny enough, it would also cause Alliance players to quit even more, making this disparity even larger. So they decided to finally catch up with the lore and to fix this problem by adding cross-faction grouping, which I gotta say, overall is an excellent thing. Lore-wise, there really are no issues with this whatsoever, as let's be real, these past few faction conflicts have definitely been quite artificial. So not only does this fix population balance and grouping problems, but it also allows more people to play together. I'm sure almost all of you had an experience when you wanted to play with a friend, but that friend plays the opposite faction exclusively, or he has a really low level or item level alt in your faction, and it doesn't really end up working out for you to play together at the same pace. So that endeavor either ends up in you leveling together for a bit and then just calling it a day, or just not playing at all. Well, cross-faction grouping essentially got rid of that problem completely, which I gotta say definitely really helped consolidate.
What's up, Hype
the
Destroyer?
player
You think
base,
I'm
which
skipping
has been
frames a
quite
little
major
bit?
issue for
Am I? How's the stream looking for everyone? My bitrate and everything.
lately. However, the actual question and the actual topic of this video is why. The actual reason why are so few people playing the Alliance? What is causing so many players to just choose the Horde? Is the Alliance weak gameplay wise? Are they just too boring? Or is it ultimately just one big massive snowball effect? Well,
yeah, it's the latter. It's the last part. Originally, people went Horde because their racials and things were better for raiding. Right, so you had exoduses of people who took raiding seriously went over to the Horde. Well, what did that do? That left a smaller raiding community on the Alliance. So what did people start doing? They were like, hey man, if I want to raid, the raiding community is much bigger on the Horde. I'm going to switch too. So you had a little trickling in of players over time, and that leak, right, that drip of players from the Alliance to the Horde eventually filled up an entire bucket and left really no true raiders left on the Alliance. And it was just exacerbated. Like, the worse it got, the quicker the leak became, because more and more people were on the Horde side, and it was making the Alliance player base even smaller. So if you wanted to raid, you had to go Horde, and it just got worse and worse. Might have been me, actually. No problem. Drip turned into hydrant. Yeah, fire hydrant, basically. I mean, I was one of the last people left in the Alliance bucket, and then finally I just got flown out. I couldn't resist anymore.
Personally,
if I wanted to
I think it is a
legitimately
mix
play
of
the game.
all these factors, but one of them is more important than the others. While racials are a thing, I doubt it is just this factor shaping the factions. I know some people are really into like min-maxing gameplay and they just choose races over this, but usually the aesthetics of a race are more important. Actually, an interesting statistic is that back in Classic, when World of Warcraft just began, the Alliance was the more numerous faction, and it was sort of the opposite problem, although at that point there were a ton of players, millions and millions of players, so grouping was a non-issue. However,
true, the shrinking of the player base made this problem worse.
I just say it is a way just the gaming world changed overall, and just the climate of MMORPGs and just fantasy in general. World of Warcraft, while not a completely new genre, really was revolutionary at the time, all the way back in 2004. It was a crazy concept overall. It was just like you in this massive world exploring zones, fighting monsters, and it was crazy that there are actual real world people in the same fantasy world as well. Do you know what also was popular
What a
at the same
concept,
time?
man.
Lord of the Rings movie.
What a time to be alive back when Vanilla WoW came out. I'll never forget those feelings. 2005 was when I started playing. I will never forget making a tune and venturing through this world where I knew absolutely nothing. You'd open the map and you'd be like, whoa, it's fucking massive. I knew where nothing was, and you literally explored it as if it was like real life. And you saw other people and you met people, and you know, you had to deal with issues in the game, and other people would come help you deal with them. I mean, you'd be in Westfall for the first time, and these giant scarecrows would keep killing you, but you group up with a bunch of players you don't know, and you get them down. And then you guys decide to do dead mines, and you're running a dungeon for the first time, and you know, it's just what an experience that was. It was like unlike anything I had ever experienced in gaming before, and it was, I mean, it clearly left a mark on me, right? I'm still playing the game now. It's freaking 2022. I should check myself before I wreck myself. I've been playing this game for that long. Yo, who dat? What's you talking about this? Yeah, blood elves are sexy. Yeah, easy solution. Stop making BS systems and make a better storyline. Maybe. Back at the start of Kata, people were raging at me on forums because I was camping them. Now I can't even see the same people in the world. Oh yeah, camping was a thing, man. PvP servers, of course. It's that Sam guy. Yes, what's up, Deadric? How's it going?
So I'd imagine quite a bit of people love the concept of playing humans and elves and just fighting monsters, orcs, the undead, and all these apparently wild beings. However, not only did the game progress, but things changed over the years as well. More races were added, MMORPGs just became an everyday thing, and the fantasy worlds just changed in general. Let's be completely honest, the Alliance is definitely more bland compared to the Horde in regards to the playable races and the choices that you have. While I'm not really crazy for our single faction personally, it just kind of seems obvious on first glance, even to people that never even played World of Warcraft. The allied races fix this issue a bit, but seriously, you have humans. Well, humans are cool and all, few people want to play a world of high fantasy with trolls, giants, dragons, elementals, undead, and then just play humans that you pretty much see in the everyday world. Then you have dwarves, which are essentially short and bulky humans. You have gnomes that are really tiny humans. The only really unique race are the night elves and the Draenei, but they aren't really all that different than the humans, especially night elves. They're just taller, slender humans with ears. Later down the line, the Vorgen were added, but the Vorgen are literally humans that just transform into werewolves. And ultimately, you have the Pandaren, but that is a choice for both factions, so it really doesn't do all that much for the Alliance to increase the diversity, so we examine it pretty much.
He forgot the Kultirans. The Kultirans are just bigger humans.
Only the Draenei and the Vorgen are different, but they are also quite human-like. Now, on the other side, the Horde really does offer a lot more
humans,
options. Some of the races are just vastly different, unlike anything else. Sure, the orcs are like the Horde version of humans.
Looking for a group is jacked up for the most part. This group/community is the exception. Oh, thank you, the Sween. Thank you.
But really, no races are similar to this base race, which is the case with the Alliance. You have the Tauren that are just vastly different than any other race, and even different when compared to other MMORPGs. A bull-like race that is twice the size of humans with horns. You have the undead, which are technically human, but they're just a lot more sinister and scary looking. You have trolls, which are related to the night elves and are completely unique in terms of looks, culture, and just the way they speak. Then
Dark Iron Dwarves are sick. I agree.
For themselves, although some could say they're just tiny orcs. Only the Blood Elves are a bit more bland, but I think the addition of Blood Elves to the Horde actually kind of messed up the Alliance faction even more, because before, you could only play elves with the Alliance, and elves are a really fantasy thing, and as I said at the time, it was popular with Lord of the Rings, but then the Horde got...
I actually think Blood Elves are the most played race on the Horde. I mean, as bland as they are, I think anybody who wanted to play an elf fantasy, like when I came into World of Warcraft, I wanted to be Legolas from Lord of the Rings, right? I made a night elf hunter. But when I saw night elves, they didn't really fit the aesthetic completely that I was looking for, because I wanted like that, you know, that real fantasy elf look. And night elves, they have that purple skin, the light up eyes, all that stuff. When Blood Elves came into the game, I was like, that's the real elves, right? That's the elves that I know from fantasy worlds. They look like a typical elf. And I feel like a lot of people who wanted to play the classic fantasy elf went Blood Elf. Blood Elf are a major, I think they're a major reason why a lot of people were okay going Horde. Because they also are the prettiest looking Horde race, right? They're the only real pretty looking Horde race. Now you also have... the Soromar elves, right? They are fine too, but they're a pretty looking race. But Blood Elves for the longest time were like the only decent looking Horde race, as far as like looks wise, not fantasy wise. That's because Blood Elves are the hottest, and they have an AoE purge, true.
Blood Elves,
their
which are
ability is
literally
good as well.
Lord of the Rings elves, and that just gave them
Lord of the
even
Rings
more
elves,
reason
exactly.
to pick the Horde.
Man, it's like I've watched this before. I don't pre-watch these videos, but sometimes Doran and I are just connected in the head, man.
Before, factions were more unique because
my first one was a female Tauren hunter.
So
wow,
I feel like that's rare. The Paladins. However, when the Blood Elf Paladins were introduced, that kind of pretty much removed that entire edge that the Alliance had. So ultimately, I'd say this is actually the real reason why a lot more people choose the Horde overall. Now, it is obvious that Blizzard has been trying to fix this problem with the allied races, and I gotta say, there was actually a brilliant solution, but ultimately, it doesn't change all that much, as most of them are just additions to what is already available, just different variations. Only the Void Elves are really a drastic choice in regards to the Alliance, while the Horde got the Nightborn, which are pretty much Night Elves, and the Volpera, which are a completely unique looking race. So, while they added more balance here, they ultimately gave even more diversity to the Horde and even less. Yeah,
the Horde really got the better share of the allied races. I definitely think the Zandalari trolls, like they were known in World of Warcraft for a long time before they were ever playable. The Zandalari trolls are cooler than the Kultirans. Like he said, the Volpira, I mean, if you're a furry, you're going Horde now. You know, they were unique as well. And then everybody was fighting over the Nightborn to get the elves from Suramar, because we played so long. It was such a cool race to be a part of. And they went Horde as well. They did fuck the Alliance in terms of ally. They tried to make it better, but I do think they made it worse. Always preferred Night Elf, but female Blood Elves are hot for twigs. Yeah. Blood Elf Silence Life? Yeah. Oh, don't be mad. That Blood Elf got a good racial. Just roll Blood Elf, yeah. Moonguard Volpira Guild Officer can confirm. Maybe if the Alliance hadn't pissed off the hot elves, they could have had some hot elves. Yeah, right. The betrayal of the Blood Elves. Even the Suramar elves didn't like them. The Nightborn, they didn't like the Alliance. They picked the Horde. Yeah, I was honestly disappointed to the Arcane change. I've got my lock, which is Void Blood Elf reskin. Oh, nice. I never see the Kultirans anywhere. I don't think they're that popular. They're just big humans. I don't see what the you know, what's the fetish with that? I don't know.
To play the Alliance. So really, I'd say the main issue with this is that the Alliance is kind of a bit boring, especially for first-time WoW players. And the thing is, like, when people just start the game, they generally pick a faction and they usually stick with it
Female
and
Night
just
Elves
main
are
that
hot.
faction pretty much forever. While a lot of us came to World of Warcraft through the RTS game, so we already knew the lore. We knew that the humans aren't just real-world boring humans and that the dwarves aren't just short humans. The players that come in later down the line and that are unfamiliar with the franchise, this isn't really the case. To them, these races just look generic, like what you can see in every MMORPG, and not really all that cool, so they kind of just pick the cool-looking
because Alliance are honorless deceivers.
Just stick with
That's
the
a big thing.
Now, to combine all this, there is the snowball effect where one thing pulls another. So there are a few more people that play the Horde. This means it is easier to find a group. If you are Horde, it is faster, it is more convenient.
That's the thing. Finding a group on the Horde is so much easier. I mean, look at the power, right? The power of Asmongold. We saw Asmongold. He couldn't form a group that was capable of completing the raid on the Alliance. But then when Cross Faction came out, he queued it up, and he had like, instead of having, he had like 56 or 60 people queue up on the Alliance. When he went cross-faction, he had like 300. So there's an imbalance right there. You could see it. I see more Kultiran Druids over other choices for some reason. It's because their Druid forms are actually very cool. They have the Drust look to them. It's their Druid forms are actually cool, so that's why you would see more of them.
Analyze the server populations and see that it is like a 60-40 ratio.
But also before WoW came out, people were pissed off at two factions in the first place, so whatever. Yeah, people thought it was weird to divide the player base. You know, World of Warcraft shows that we're going to go with factions, we're going to divide the player base. But back then the numbers were so big. You talk 12 million people playing the game, it's okay to divide the player base. You're going to have a big group on both sides.
They decide to join the majority, and then they further increase this difference. Then, as the difference is further increased, it increases even further. Then the population difference becomes just so vast that a lot of players are literally just forced to transfer to the other faction, as it becomes pretty much impossible to find a group or
Welcome
to
Sam,
play the game,
basically.
which on certain server just turns the faction completely dead. In this case, the majority of the cases is the Alliance. Now, it is hard to find actual statistics, as this always varies from region to region, but if you go to just pretty much any World of Warcraft statistics website, you will see it is like a 65 to 35% ratio pretty much almost all the time. There are twice as many Horde guilds as there are Alliance ones. In some regions, this is even as extreme as an 85% to 15%, and there are stats that upwards of 70% of the player base that actively plays dungeons and raids are Hordes, So while it might seem like it is nearly a 50-50 balance, on the server stats, if you're looking to play the game seriously, you are going to have an issue if you play the Alliance, so might as well just pick the Horde. So I'd say that what they did with cross-faction grouping is actually the ultimate solution. It pretty much just completely removes this grouping and faction disparity barrier, while also catching up with the lore, so it is really just two birds with one stone. Now, another thing they could also do is what they're doing with the Draktyr and the Pandaren, so having a race that can join both of the factions, which means that people can now play the dragons even if you're
just
the
pick
Horde
the faction
or the
you
Alliance.
want.
So no longer are the Horde the monsters while the Alliance are the human-like races. I feel like because of this trends, it means that in expansions after Dragonfight, we might get these types of races.
I will say one point that I think he missed, that also kind of, skewed the factions. The Paladin Shaman switching of factions. Right? Paladins, okay, look at Shamans and Paladins. I guarantee you Paladins are more played. The class fantasy of a Paladin is very popular. Right? The light and the hammer and all that stuff, the religiousness, everything that comes with a Paladin is a very cool class fantasy to play. Shamans are cool. I'm not saying they're not cool, but Paladins are, it's a very popular class to play. And the Alliance were the only ones that had Paladins for a long time. I think giving the Horde Paladins also skewed the numbers towards the Horde side, because I think a lot of people who wanted to play that fantasy, and there are a lot of people, were forced to play Alliance, right? You were bottlenecked into the Alliance side of things because that's the only people who could play it. That was something else that I think broke down the barrier. I think a lot more people went Paladin than people went Shaman when that happened, when they allowed both sides to play it. Yeah, but the amount of meta players is a more influential aspect on Paladins/Shamans. It is, and I'm not saying that the Paladin-Shaman switch is the reason this happened. I'm just saying it's another little factor on top of the 50 factors that were mentioned in this video that caused the skewing of players over to the Horde side. I legit see very few Shamans in groups, or even in the open world. Exactly. And just remember, Shamans and Paladins were day one in the game. This isn't like Shamans came around later and that's why there aren't a lot of them. It's just Paladins are just as far as classes go, they're just a more played class and a more popular class fantasy to play.
It will be available to both factions, because if they continue adding races to each factions, it is highly possible that people just find one of them cooler looking and they just pick that one, further increasing the disparity. Thank you for watching. Check out how the Alliance got back their nails by clicking on the screen, and check out Doronsmovies Academy for videos on real world history. See you next time.
Yes. Alright. Very nice. Another great video from Doran. I love it. We actually watched this one, like it had released 2 minutes before I started the stream. So we were on point with that.